Hey everybody, welcome back. We're less than 1 week away from the Fantasy Football Expo, but that's okay because we got you all know how much I love the newbies and the rookies. Well, we got a new rookie and his name is Matt Korn. He's got DFS Dashboard. It is so cool. You're going to want to know all about it, and it's coming up next. All right, here we are with Matt Korn, fellow fantasy football player and fellow accountant. Don't find many of those, but here we are. Two accountants are going to be talking fantasy football. Could it get any nerdier? I don't think so. But Matt, welcome to the show. Tell everybody where you're calling in from, where you'll be coming from to come to the expo, and then we'll start kind of diving into your history, just about fantasy football, nothing else.
Yeah, nothing else. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, so I'll be driving from Louisville, Kentucky up to Canton this weekend and looking forward to a great expo.
Yes, that was the other thing I forgot about. So he lives in Louisville, Kentucky, and I live in Louisville, Ohio. Same spelling, different pronunciation, south of the border. So here we are. Matt, before we get started, talk about DFS Dashboard, which is super cool. I love everything about it, and I know people will once you explain it to them. Let's talk about your humble beginnings in fantasy football. You're super young like me, so it hasn't been that long when you were in high school, when you started playing fantasy, when dinosaurs roamed the earth and everything like that. But tell everybody when you got started into fantasy football, who pulled you into it, how did you find out about it, how did those humble beginnings start for you?
So you kind of have to go back even before fantasy football, and
Okay.
so I grew up at the racetrack. I'm a horse player. I grew
Yeah.
up. My mom brought me to the racetrack when I was probably 9 years old, and she
Nice.
handed me a racing form, and I read the racing form like I was reading a Dr. Seuss book. I mean, I just took to it like nothing. And so then she would literally call in sick for me to get out of school so that I could go to the track with her and pick horses.
Nice.
And I mean, even to the point where, I mean, I studied for the CPA exam at Churchill Downs in the grandstand section in between races. I literally
Oh my
sat there with
god,
my glam book studying for the CPA exam.
that's
And then the
fantastic.
races that come on, I'd make a bet. And so, it all kind of started with once you kind of learn how to play horses, you know how to gamble. And
Hmm.
so when fantasy sports, probably the first league I got in was 91, 92, when we're all
Yeah.
using USA Today and we're waiting for the Monday paper to
Yeah.
come out so that we can do the rotisserie rankings.
Yeah.
And man, it was just one more form of gambling. So I just loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it. And I've been playing in leagues ever since, and now I go to Las Vegas every year and do some of the high stakes stuff in
Cool.
first weekend in September. And I mean, I'm just hooked.
There it is. There it is. Yeah, no, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, we don't have the horse racing scenarios around here. You got to go kind of to Wheeling, West Virginia, which is a few hours away. So it never was a thing. But yeah, for people who have lived close, I certainly have some friends that are still into horses, and definitely a fun thing. But yeah, being as close and working out for you. So talk about Matt as you started in fantasy. Obviously, you may or may not have been gambling at 9 years old, but leading how did that lead you to DFS Dashboard? Talk about that transition, talk about that journey, and then talk about as much as you want about what DFS Dashboard is, how it can help people, and what it does to make their life easier when it comes to that kind of world.
No, that's perfect. Coming from the horse racing background, everything in horse racing is really based on probabilities and outcomes. I mean, there's a lot of times where, especially growing up when you're kind of young and you think you know everything, right? And that's the key is you think you know everything when you're doing this stuff. And you go to the track and you got a horse that's just like a sure thing. This horse can't lose, right? No way.
Mhm.
And then you bet them and probably put more money than you probably should have on the horse. And I mean, at the time, I'm probably waiting tables and
Yeah.
making, a few $100s a week, and I'm putting my entire week's salary on a horse. And then all of a sudden, he trips coming out of the gate, and the jockey decides he's going to save him for the rest of the race, and he doesn't do anything. And you just lost your week's salary, and you realize, you know what? Maybe I don't know everything, right? I mean, it humbles you to the point where you realize no matter how much something looks like it's a sure thing,
Right.
it's not. Like, we'll say Christian McCaffrey last year. I mean, everyone was drafting him number one,
Yep.
looked like a sure thing. If you were to look at the odds and the sports books, he was the guy. And he turned out, he got hurt, and that he wasn't the guy, right? And so, that's kind of was the genesis. Two things were the genesis of me creating DFS Dashboard. One is just knowing that not everything's a sure thing and that there is a probability and outcome. The second piece of this is how many times, when you're setting your lineups for the week and you're looking at guys and two guys look exactly the same. You got two wide receivers and you're like, I don't know. I got 5 wide receivers. I got to start 3 of them. I don't know what 3 to start. And then I go out to the various websites, and there's some great content out there. And I love the content for entertainment. And you read it, and if you go to 5 different websites, they tell you 5 different guys to start, right? And you're like, I don't know. Well, what I've been able to do is I was like, surely we can find a way where we can find out what the real probability chance is that these players are going to succeed. I know when I sit down at a blackjack table, I get the little card, and the card tells me what the probability is for each bet. That doesn't mean I'm going to win that bet, right? I mean, if I get a pair of 8s and I got to split them, I'm probably losing anyways, but I'm just trying to turn it into one good hand.
Right.
And so it's not like the card tells you, well, if you get this, I don't know. One guy's going to tell you one thing and another guy's going to tell you another. It just tells you what to do. Well, that's what DFS Dashboard does. I went and I grabbed information from the sports books, and I can kind of reverse engineer to figure out exactly what their exposures are for each player in prop bets and game bets. And as I look at what their exposures are, is I can say, what players do they like and not like? What are they assessing as their probabilities? Because they got to get probabilities right. They're not trying to win 100% of their bets, but if they get the probabilities right on all their bets, they're going to win. And so that's what we kind of created was, how do we create a probability of each outcome of each player? And so if you've got 5 players, 5 wide receivers, and you're trying to figure out which one to start, and you say, okay, which one? And the first one's got a 66% chance, so he's good. The second one's got a 62%, he's good. Then the next one, 59, he's good. But then, we'll say not the 59, but we'll say now he's 46, and then another guy's 45, and another guy's 44. Well, they're all pretty close, but one's better than the others. And you might say, hey, I'm going to start the guy with the 46% chance. Let's say it's, Chris Godwin or something. Let's say it's between Chris Godwin and Xavier Worthy. And you're like, okay, I got to start one of them. One's 46%, one's 45%. And as you look at it, it's only 1%, but it's a higher percentage. But it's close at that point in time that you might also say, hey, it doesn't really matter. I got a gut feeling about this, and it's only 1 percentage point, so I'm going to take Xavier Worthy. At least you know what your risk is when you're making the choice. Gotcha. But you're not going to take, let's say one of the 61% guys, which we'll say like is a, Malik Neighbors. You're not taking Malik Neighbors out. He's too high a probability.
Right.
So that's what we do is we tell you where your probabilities are, and you get to make the decision of, are you going to take the highest chance, or if they're so close, go with your gut, because at that point in time, 1%, 3%, they don't matter.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So for somebody who wants to get involved in this and be a part of this, where do they go to sign up? Does it cost anything? How does it work on a weekly basis? Talk about that process for folks.
Yeah, right now we're a startup. So we've built a application. I'll first say the application's amazing. We used it last year. We went live last year, and we were free. We're going to be free for a period this year, and eventually we're going to put a paywall up. Okay. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to get people to get some traction with what we're doing, because it's one of those things that once you see the site and you start using it, then you almost can't live without it. I mean, it's like when you're setting lineups, you're like, I mean, I've got friends who use this thing and they're like, I literally, whether it's a season long or a daily, and I'll go into the daily stuff here in a second, but they literally can't set lineups without looking at my data because
Mhm.
it gives them empirical information, not just
Yeah.
what somebody thinks. And again, that content's great, but it really is based on what someone thinks. So the site is dfsdashboard.com. And we've got a bunch of articles out there right now for season long. We have an application that what it does is it goes out and it sweeps all the sports books every 15 minutes, updates all the projections constantly, but that's all really based for DFS. So we have the DFS salaries out there for both DraftKings and FanDuel. And we've got a way to kind of evaluate players based on their salaries and what their projections are. And I'll tell you, it's crazy. Some of the things that we've seen in this, because first of all, like last year, week one, nobody was predicting Baker Mayfield, week one of last year, right? And we had him ranked as the number one quarterback because the sports books didn't want exposure on Baker Mayfield. You could see it right there. And by the way, nothing I do is ever touched by human hands. There's a lot of guys out there who write content who are smarter in football than I am. But I'm really, you made a comment earlier about being an accountant and we're geeks, and I'm a complete geek. There's not many people better at numbers than I am. Yeah. And so I'm really good with numbers and I'm really good at figuring out where there's exposure.
Gotcha.
And so when week one, we predicted Baker, I believe it was week 8. All of a sudden, it was crazy. Week 8, Bo Nix popped up as the number one quarterback. I mean, he hadn't done anything all season.
Hmm.
The week that Jerry Jeudy went nuts on Monday Night Football, it was Wednesday. I was going to lunch with my wife, and I was like, Jerry Jeudy is not a great player, and suddenly it's got him ranked as the number one wide receiver in football.
Crazy.
And it's again the sports books. I guarantee they've got people at the practices. They're
Oh, yeah.
watching this stuff, and if they don't want us to bet them, then they're going to lower their odds to a point where it's going to make it uncomfortable for us to bet it. But that means as fantasy players, we can use that information in order to try to beat other fantasy players who aren't using that information. And that's the end of the day what I'm doing. You
Right.
can beat the casino, but I can use the casino to beat my other fantasy players who aren't using this data.
Right. Got it. No, that's great stuff. And so people go there right now. You can sign up, get your account. Then when will they start seeing? So obviously, I'm assuming you don't do anything preseason, or do you?
We don't because
Okay, and that's fine.
the sportsbook data for preseason is terrible. They just don't. It's so incomplete. Now, what I will tell you, we've done is we're grabbing the futures odds. So we're taking.
Okay.
I mean, it's amazing. You can go out to the sports books and you can grab every game for the season. All the betting lines are out there. All the over unders are out there for every single game of the season right now. The player props are out there for the season. Who's going to the milestones
For the total.
Yeah, it's all out there. So what I do is I grab that data and I run it through the same algorithm I use for season long, and I can come up with, same algorithm I use for weekly on the DFS, and I can create season long information for your fantasy drafts.
Hmm.
Now, I can't build that into the application because the application right now is built for daily.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is I publish that as articles. And so I literally have articles out there now that show these rankings. And there are some surprises on there. I mean, I'll tell you, I think I've got right now Brock Purdy is the number 5 quarterback. And it's because the sports books rank his rushing threat as really high. Like he is heavily favored to get 5 rushing touchdowns. And they like his rushing yards. And so don't think of Brock Purdy. Again, I'm not a football guy. I am a football guy. I love watching it. But there are people way smarter than me on this stuff.
Right.
And so I don't think I thought of Brock Purdy as a rushing threat, but the sportsbooks see him as a rushing threat, and so he pops really high on my model. And so there's things like that. And then some of the older running backs that you wouldn't, guys like Joe Mixon and James Conner and those kind of guys we don't want to draft. If you and I are doing a draft, we're holding our nose if we pick them, right? but they're ranked really high by the sportsbook because they're like, I promise you, MGM doesn't care how old Joe Mixon is, right? They really don't. They just don't want to get beat by the guy who bets Joe Mixon. And if they give him, let's say 3-1 odds to get 1,000 yards, they're going to get their brains beat in. And so they're going to lower his odds to a number that's going to make them more comfortable.
Gotcha.
Which means if they want to get more comfortable on Joe Mixon, then maybe I should pick him for fantasy, right?
Gotcha. No, it all makes very logical sense.
Yeah.
Love everything about this. It's numbers, but it's also, like you said, using the Vegas to help you in fantasy because of what's happening on the betting side. So great stuff. So again, every week, then now they're signed up. They're a customer. They're a user. What are they going to see each week? Is there tools? Is there articles? Is there both? Talk about once the season's rolling, what they're going to see and get out of DFS Dashboard every week.
So typically our projections, as soon as we start getting some numbers, we don't have to get all the numbers, but as soon as we start getting some numbers from the sports books, so it's usually, I'll say, midday Monday.
Okay.
And then our projections update every 15 minutes. And if a player gets injured, all of a sudden it cycles and it kind of redoes all of our projections. So if someone does projections by hand, and all of a sudden, I mean, how many times do we see on Friday that a guy who we thought was healthy all of a sudden is declared as out or questionable because he pulled a hamstring in practice? Well, my projections will update immediately, whereas it takes somebody a day or two to cycle those in.
Yeah.
Ours, since they update every 15 minutes, you can go out there starting Monday and just watch all the projections. We've got week 1 projections already up for this season because there's already released some of the data for week 1. So if you go out there, the other thing that's really cool is there's 2 features in here that I think are really cool that I want to highlight. One is you can almost use the site like you're setting a same game parlay. So you can set over-unders. Like if you see a player and let's say CeeDee Lamb is a 85 yards receiving and 7 receptions. And you go, I think he's getting more than that. Well, you can click the over on both of those and it'll juice those numbers up. And then whenever you look at everything for the rankings, now his rankings are going to be higher because you've customized for what you think is going to happen in a game, right?
Okay.
Or you can say, hey, I want to take away, because we've got numbers for partial touchdowns, but you can take away all the partial touchdowns and you can just give touchdowns to people through the customization. And so like if in a game, there might be, every player has a chance to get a touchdown. You can zero all those out with just the reset number and then go in and give 4 players touchdowns in the game. And that cycles directly into the projections. Okay. You don't have to do any math. It all does it for you. Nice. And now those are the projections. The other thing that we have which is really super cool is, so how many times do you do an optimizer? And there's some good sites out there that do these optimizers, but you run an optimizer for daily fantasy and you end up with filler players that their projection guys like, right? I mean, it's always, they might like, Jahan Dotson just because he's inexpensive,
Right.
And then every lineup you do, you're like, oh, I'm trying to get a bunch of lineups with Saquon Barkley and these other players. And then then you look at your 100 lineups you've built and Jahan Dotson's in all of them because, they've got them projected. The guy who did the projections have them projected for, 4 catches for 40 yards and he only costs $3,500, right? Right. I don't want Jahan Dotson. I don't want 100% exposure to Jahan Dotson.
Right.
So what we've done is, again, we've reverse engineered how the professional players play DFS. And so we've created an optimizer that basically creates lineups the same way that the professional players do it with a high degree of we spread the risk out amongst a lot of players. Okay. And so we don't concentrate the risk on any one player, and then we don't take the dumb risk. That's the other thing. We've been doing this for golf, for the golf season, and what we find is the casual player on DFS cashes about 15% of the time. The numbers 15. The professionals cash about 22 to 24.
Really? That's all?
Yeah, that's it. So if you look at like a contest, like a GPP, the contest only pay out to 20%, right?
Mm.
So when you look at, if it's a contest that has 100,000 entries, it only pays out to 20,000 entries. So only 20% are going to get. We all think the professionals are killing it. Well, they are killing the casual guy. But so we created a model, and our numbers are cashing closer to 30%.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, people who are using my site, like just this week, one of the users used our optimizer, and he finished third in the GPP. So, and last week finished seventh in the GPP.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're cashing, and we're not setting. These are lineups that have a legitimate chance to win. Because when you look at lineups and you see how much risk the casual guy is taking, it just takes way too much risk. And the professionals just don't take that kind of risk. It just
Right.
don't.
Right. Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. No, great stuff. Obviously, folks, you're hearing it. If you're not going signing up right now, I've already got the thing up. I think I may have signed up, but I don't remember because I'm old.
Yeah.
So I have it up to double check. But I'm telling you right now, I'm signing up. I just have kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And so this is a great reminder. So if you're not signing up by hearing what you're hearing, why are you even playing? Why are you trying? Definitely get signed up for this. Matt, we're coming in here to the expo just barely a few days away. Talk about your experience here and getting involved in the expo, how you heard about it, what you got planned. Talk about your first year experience. I already know that you're very excited about the parties. We'll leave that at bay, but talk about your intentions here and why you decided to come and what you got planned.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I got involved in FSGA, which is the trade association for our industry, and got to go to the first conference because, again, we're just kind of a startup. We're just getting our feet wet in this industry. And FSGA is a great, great organization. There's a lot of guys like me with an idea, and we need to have that idea kind of marinate. We need to have other people give us some resources to help us grow that idea. And Bob, that's where I met you. You were at my first FSGA conference. You were great to come up and talk to me. And I mean, I was like a lost puppy in that conference. I didn't know anybody, and so having guys like you that come up and talk to us, and then just kind of really welcoming into the industry. And then once you told me about the expo, I was like, man, I got to be part of this. This is so cool. So I was glad to be part of this, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. We're going to have a booth. I thought hard about what kind of giveaways we're going to have. And at the end of the day, I'm going to have candy. We're going to have lots and lots of candy. So
candy.
If you're at the expo and you get hungry, come by my booth.
He's got candy.
I'm going to have M&Ms. I promise you.
My favorite. I'm in. Yeah. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you can never go wrong with candy.
Never, and you never could go wrong with M&Ms.
Yeah.
They're so consistent. See what I did?
Yes.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you again for joining us on the show. Thank you again for being a part of this expo. We're really excited about hanging out. I'm sure you and I will have some beverages, if not 5 or 10. On Saturday evening for the party. For everybody else, folks, probably the tickets will be cut off by the time you see this video. So just come to Canton, come to the Doubletree Hilton, check in there, get your tickets, or just go to the Sunday event. The expo will be on Sunday, August 10th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you want to just come for the trade show booths and the panel discussions and learn lots of great stuff, meet this gentleman, get some M&Ms, and learn all about DFS Dashboard and why you should be following it for sure. So, Matt, thank you again. If you want to just share one more time, website, socials, everything they need to know about DFS Dashboard.
Yeah, dfsdashboard.com. We're on Facebook. Visit us at either of those locations. I promise you, it's free right now. Once you use it, there's a reason why it's free, because once you use it, you're not going to be able to go forward without using it again. I know, right? The data is, I'm telling you, the data sells itself.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody, once again, see you guys this weekend at the Expo. For Matt Korn, I'm Bob Lung. Take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Lock in your 2025 football tickets now at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Hit subscribe and check out one of these excellent At FF Expo videos next.